The Netherlands is becoming a dystopia? That just can't be true. I'm sorry, but the Netherlands is like number 5 happiest country on earth. A dystopia?
December 12th, 2025, a report was released. It was written by the former CEO of ASML, the most important company.
You need a little misery? It's so funny you say that because I saw it was a thing of like different expats to different countries talking about their experience. And in the Netherlands, they said, yeah, the country's great, but it is really boring. Like I moved here because I wanted like a stability and quality of life, but then I got here and it was like, once I got it, I realized it was like nothing's going on. It was like really, it's just dull, slow living.
In Europe. The CEO was asked to research the Dutch economy and find out how its future is looking. And his answer was, it's not looking too hot.
U zegt onze welvaart is in het geding. En dan hebben we het dus niet alleen over bedrijven, maar eigenlijk over ons allemaal. Wat we met z'n allen verdienen. Hoe urgent is dat?
Ik denk heel urgent.
A nation is sleepwalking into stagnation. A welfare state that will no longer pay for itself. Geopolitical threats it's powerless against. Bills and taxes that are already high. But if the country's growth continues to decline, the Netherlands will either have to raise taxes or cut important services.
This is every country.
This is the story of a terrible thing happening in the Netherlands. It's a story of one of the most important reports in recent Dutch history. And it's a report about why the Netherlands is slowly
having
dying.
ein serious problem. I am Swedish and I hate Dutch people.
2024.
Well, they have an enemy to the north then. I guess that's part of the problem, is they've got enemies all around.
The former president of the European Central Bank is presenting a report on European competitiveness. And the situation doesn't look great.
We have said many times that growth has been slowing down for a long time in Europe.
Economically, Europe has been lagging behind America for decades, and that gap is widening.
But now we cannot ignore it any longer. Now conditions have changed.
Mario Draghi sends shockwaves throughout the EU.
Okay.
World trade is slowing. China is actually slowing very much, but it's become much less open to us, and actually it's competing with us in global markets on all accounts.
For years, Europe's economy has been growing more slowly, but that was mostly fine. There were only a few small problems.
We've lost our main supplier of cheap energy, Russia.
American tech companies took over the world, while Europe became dependent on them.
There will be 2 million workers disappearing from the labor market every year.
Aging?
So now more than ever we have to lean on productivity, but productivity is weak. It's very weak.
And the productivity gap grew. But this was mostly fine. Europe is different. Its strength isn't growth at all costs, it's stability. Sure, Americans have big phones, big guns, big cars, and more disposable income.
And big hamburgers?
But Europeans have security, a lower salary, but not fired as easily, an imperfect but actually functioning healthcare system.
True.
We have strong education, we have a healthcare system that works. As I said, we have good welfare system, and then we have lots of specific strengths, talent.
Walkable urbanism, terraces where they can drink real beer, not Budweiser, and eat coq au vin.
True.
There's some higher taxes, but egalitarianism is a virtue. Money isn't everything, until it is. Countries go broke gradually, and then all at once. Due to an aging population, European spending on pensions and healthcare is set to explode. With Russia on its doorstep, there's also going to be more spending on defense. So public debts soar.
And if Europe can no longer provide them to its people,
this is all true so far, to be honest.
it will have lost its reason.
It's not unique to Europe, but these are big problems that are facing a lot of countries. I will say, like, I think the thing that's hitting Europe the most is all of their manufacturing exports are getting outcompeted by China. Like, I just think, like, especially the big powerhouses like Germany, like, just in pharma, trains, in vehicles, in energy, and like, these are the things I think are the scariest part if you're looking at just Europe. I talk about American problems problems every fucking day. So we can talk about Europe for a bit. I think they're just getting kind of squoze.
So real quick, I wanted to add some numbers to this, grab the data and just show the disparity between Europe and China as a whole. Now, the following data is from around a year ago in 2024. I found that China ranks number 1, Germany number 3. When you actually take a step back though, China versus Europe looks a lot different than you might think. Europe as like a big conglomerate, they actually have more exports by a significant amount. I'll get to the actual dollar amount in a second, but for the Netherlands at least, they actually have the largest port in Europe, being the port of Rotterdam. Anyways, in 2024, the EU as a whole exported 6.3 trillion US dollars in value, while China only exported 3.5 trillion. Don't get me wrong, that number is still huge for China. I don't want to downplay that, but I think it's very important to note just how much of an economic power Europe actually is when they all come together.
Greece chose austerity and lost a generation to immigration. Turkey chose inflation and wiped out middle-class savings. Argentina defaulted, and it still hasn't recovered. If you have growth, future taxes can keep pace with future spending, but Dutch and European growth is declining. Like trying to squeeze a juiced out orange, slowly.
You know who's fucking killing it in Europe though? At least on growth, is Poland. I was talking with a European guy actually at my table at the finance conference, and he was telling me about Polish growth rates are crazy. They're doing really well, man. They're like, in fact, I was also researching stuff about the games industry, and like, there's just these massive games layoffs in California and in Montreal, traditional gaming superpowers, and like, there's a huge growth in Poland. Tons of the games industry is moving to Poland. A lot of work is being outsourced to Poland, and Switzerland is pissed. Well, that's another thing. The guy talked about, the guy was Swiss. He's like, it was a problem because here's the thing is right now, all the money is flooding into Swiss currency because it's stable. So everyone's buying Swiss franc. But when the Swiss currency gets that much stronger, it makes your exports horribly uncompetitive. You know, it's like difficult to build an exporting factory in Switzerland or whatever. So you go outsource it to Poland because it's cheaper there. So there's like weird knock-on effects.
But surely, there just isn't enough economic activity to tax. Europe's biggest obstacle isn't lack of talent, will, or ability. It's fragmentation. Europe's internal barriers are essentially a 44% tariff already. The scale you need to create true international competitors just isn't there. The US doesn't need to be a good market, it's simply a bigger one.
For sure.
If Europe wants to stay competitive, we need to support European innovators. So in the aftermath of Draghi's report, the Dutch Minister of Economic Affairs asked Peter Wennick to come up with a similar report, specifically focusing on the Netherlands. For years he ran ASML, a Dutch company that manufactures the world's best chip-making machines.
De manier waarop we het hebben georganiseerd is, we hebben ruim 30 tafels georganiseerd, ronde tafels.
Like again, like there's like zero risk for ASML from the American side. The risk on the American side is that Donald Trump is fucking crazy. He might invade Greenland or break up NATO or whatever, like, or tariff. That's the risk on the American side. But there's not a risk of like ASML getting replaced. It's just part of that supply chain they're going to use it. But I think there is a risk for all of these of a Chinese competitor. Just like if China ever cracked what ASML has, they're not really close right now, to be honest, but they're working on it. If they cracked it, it would be overnight a wipeout of like a massive part of the Dutch economy. It would be crazy.
Elke tafel was een afspiegeling eigenlijk van de organisaties die bezig zijn met de economische ontwikkeling van dit land.
The conclusion was bleak. If it stays on the same course, the country will go broke.
Dat betekent dat we binnen 5 jaar fors zullen moeten gaan bezuinigen. Op eigenlijk alles. Op onderwijs, op veiligheid, op de zorg, op de infrastructuur. Elk Nederlands huishouden over 10 jaar €7.000 netto minder te besteden heeft.
But the Netherlands is also in a strange position. Its public finances are pretty solid. It's well connected to global markets. Unlike
what is Netherlands debt to GDP? Netherlands debt to GDP. Oh my God, they're incredible. They're only 40%. That's like one of the best in the world. They're chilling. I mean, they could run it hot if they wanted to. If they needed to get out of a slump. Damn, they're down from 2020. Their debt is down from 2020? That's so rare from any country. Wait, why are they, do they have does Netherlands have a debt break? They do, okay, I knew it. That's what we need. We need a fucking debt break, dude.
Germany, it doesn't depend on energy-intensive heavy industry and doesn't have China knocking. It doesn't share France's luxury boomer benefits approach to budget.
Was a debt break? No, break like a car break, B-R-A-K-E. It's like a rule that caps the amount of debt you can take on, and you need like a massive supermajority to change it or extend it. Yeah, it's like a debt ceiling we have here, but not a joke, like a serious one. Because right now there's just no incentive for anybody to make a hard choice ever.
That takes from the young, and with ASML, it has an international technological niche and more leverage than most EU countries. But the Netherlands does have a few problems that set it apart.
Maar wat mij duidelijk is geworden in die 30 ronde tafels, is dat de ideeën er wel zijn. Daar ga ik straks wat dieper op in. Maar het gaat niet gebeuren.
God created the world, but the Dutch made the Netherlands. Unlike France, Germany, or the US, it's always been shaped by one unique constraint. It doesn't have enough land. Half the country is farmland. Around 12% of space in the Netherlands is covered by man-made surfaces, nearly 3 times the European average.
Okay.
It's one of the most densely populated countries in the world. Americans have...
I know this. The Netherlands has they have insane greenhouse technology. They like make such a massive percentage of agricultural exports for their size. It's absurd. It's like America #1 exporter in like everything, and then Netherlands #2 and things like tomatoes and stuff. And it's like they're like the size of a tiny. They've crammed so much into such a small space.
But in the Netherlands, every square meter is a zero-sum game. This lack of land is also why the Dutch are culturally predetermined to become unpleasant NIMBYs.
Kleuren zijn zeer nauw aan elkaar verwant. Maar zij zeiden het is deze kleur, hemelsblauw, terwijl in de vergunning lichtblauw staat. Het is deze kleur.
Windmills obstruct people's views. House building makes too much noise. Because of its density, the Dutch power grid is also filled to the brink. There are not enough link-ups to go around. Even when money and the permits for construction are there, things can't get built because there's a 2-year waiting list for a power plug.
Als je een grote aansluiting nodig hebt, kun je 8 tot 12 jaar wachten.
I mean, I definitely believe that there's like bureaucracy nightmares in the Netherlands. I mean, I believe that. There's a lot of European nations where that's the case. There's that thing in Germany where if you make a contract in Germany, you are required to sit down and have a government notary read it out loud the entire contract. Yeah, you have to get you have to get a government notary read the thing in front of both parties. And it's like expensive and slow and you have to like it's wild. Like there's some of this that's just stupid. They should just modernize it.
Te maken met regelgeving. Het kost ons tussen de 10, misschien wel 30 miljard per jaar. De Nederlandse stroomprijzen zijn zodanig hoog dat het de energie-intensieve industrie het land uitjaagt.
This turns the well-designed density of the Netherlands into an impossibility. In addition to lack of space on the ground, the Netherlands also suffers from a lack of space in the air. Nearly everything useful you can do with land causes nitrogen pollution. Agriculture, home building, and transportation infrastructure create gases like ammonia that harm the environment and human health. In most of Europe, the gas gets spread out, but in the Netherlands, it's a literal Dutch oven. There's too many cows, factories, and cars in a tiny space.
Nice.
So pollution builds up, and it has nowhere to go. The environment suffers, children start coughing.
Wait, so you're just trapped in with cow farts? In America, we spread out our enormous amount of cow farts. I feel like they should not do cows. Cows in that small of a country is crazy.
And because nitrogen levels vastly exceed European limits, nothing gets built. The permits for everything are illegal.
De vergunningsprocedures in Nederland duren op zijn gunstigste geval maanden. En dat houdt bijvoorbeeld de uitbouw van de infrastructuur tegen. Elders in andere landen gaat het veel sneller. En kijk dan eenmaal naar het stikstofslot. Het stikstofslot kost ons tot 2030 ongeveer 30 miljard euro omzet. Ik denk dat 2/3 van alle investeringsvoorstellen om de energietransitie te doen gewoon stilvallen. Dus vanwege regelgeving. We kunnen niet verder.
A common sense solution to this problem would involve making some difficult trade-offs. Maybe less cows, more housing. But that tends to be more controversial than you'd think. The lack of space exasperates problems that are faced by everyone in Europe.
Yeah, you
For
gotta go less
decades, like
cows.
other European countries, the Dutch economy grew simply by putting more people to work. Baby boomers and women entered the labor market. People came in from abroad. There were plenty of hands. Building and growing the economy was easy. While the number of workers increased, each worker's productivity also went up. Mass education meant they worked more efficiently, creating more value per worker. Because both the numbers of workers and the value created per worker increased, the economy boomed.
Yep.
But this is now changing. In the past 20 years, 2/3 of economic growth have come from a larger labor force, and not from growing productivity. The classic way to increase productivity is through education. Despite the Netherlands being a well-educated country, Dutch school performance has been dipping for years.
Maar als we kijken naar de prestaties
Yeah, this is
in het
everybody.
onderwijs, die dalen al 20 jaar. We
This
zitten
is
onder
phones.
het gemiddelde van de
Oh,
OESO.
they're below the OECD average? That's actually pretty
En
terrible.
als je kijkt naar de zogenaamde PISA-scores, dat zijn scores voor de basisvaardigheden in taal en in wiskunde en in dus natuurkunde, dan is dat geen dalende trend. Dat is een trend dat lijkt op een ingestorte grafiek.
It's one of the EU's top spenders on education, but Dutch teenagers read about as well as those in Slovakia, while being nearly 3 times as rich.
Alleen al in het
Oh,
wiskundeonderwijs
Slovakia.
is er 40% minder leerstof aangeboden dan 30 jaar geleden. En de andere landen juist investeren in excellentie.
In Dutch
with us.
tertiary education, the number of students that choose technical degrees is among the lowest in Europe. 20 years of decline, despite successive governments
Disaster.
plowing money into education. Luckily, if returns for education decline, Dutch resourcefulness can be relied upon. But despite the Netherlands having a reputation for Calvinist shame, there isn't a single country in the world with a higher share of part-time workers. Dutch people worked 1,450 hours per year on average, compared to 1,740 on average in the OECD. That chilled-out lifestyle is understandably celebrated
Wait, where are they? Is this hours? I don't get it. Percentage of employment in each sector. This is percentage of employment.
on average
I want
in
to
the
see.
OECD. That chilled-out lifestyle is understandably celebrated. Trying too hard would be cringe. A Dutch person can live comfortably without having to live a rat race life. There's no need to be extra.
Okay.
It's all true, but it does also mean that Dutch women earn less over their lifetimes than almost anywhere else in Europe.
Okay.
Despite the Netherlands' progressive reputation, its lower annual work hours are skewed by 60% of Dutch women working part-time jobs. Aside from cultural factors, Dutch taxes on labor are deeply distortionary. Income from working longer is not immediately rewarded.
Wat je eigenlijk wilt zijn. Als ik kijk naar waar wij onze belastingmiddelen vandaan halen en ik vergelijk dat met onze omringende landen, dan halen wij relatief weinig belasting uit de vermogensbelasting op particulieren. Dan halen wij relatief veel belasting, maar ja, het geld moet toch worden opgehaald, uit de
You
inkomstenbelasting.
gotta shave it.
Dus je zou kunnen zeggen dat wij meer dan andere landen een soort
got a regressive tax.
renteniereconomie aan het worden zijn. Terwijl wij eigenlijk de hardwerkende Nederlander daarvoor laten betalen met hogere belasting, hogere tarieven inkomstenbelasting.
But in a time of labor market shortages, these incentives matter. The government is spending millions on recruitment campaigns to train more hospital workers, while the average Dutch nurse works 26 hours per week. If all part-time nurses were to work an extra day, that would create the equivalent of 11,000 extra full-time nurses. This would almost solve the entire shortage, and the average nurse still wouldn't be
I work at ASML in the US, and the Dutch guys laugh at us all the time when they visit. My 2-week vacation was laughed at. This is so fucking relatable. When I worked at NVIDIA, you know, I was the global marketing lead, so I had to do my calls with Europe and Asia. And the European team, bro, it's like I couldn't even get a hold of them. They had so many fucking bank holidays. And then like August, they just take off. I swear to God. We had a big thing at Gamescom, which is in Germany. So I had to fly out to Germany with my team, and we were like crunching. We were like trying to like get all the emails and the social and the newsletter and the fucking website, and the fucking European guys were drinking non-stop at Gamescom. They would like stumble in, and it's like, bro, we got to finish this. But you know what? They're not going to regret at the end of their life.
working full-time. Leave it to Dutch culture and financial incentives to make that switch impossible. And even if Dutch people were to start working full-time overnight, that still wouldn't solve its low growth. Because of aging, there's an inevitable hard ceiling on how much working longer hours can bring about. Much of Dutch prosperity comes from an open economy that trades fully with other countries. It has the largest port in Europe, and its economy fundamentally depends on free trade.
That's right.
Unfortunately, the world's largest and second largest economies both use trade as a weapon.
Right.
A tiny country that depends on two big guys playing by the rules will be eaten for dinner. Poor and dependent. Luckily, in his report, Wennick at least offers some ideas to break the stagnation.
Well, that's the Carney idea, right? They just have to build the trade blocks outside of the US and China.
Whether they're all individually desirable is a separate matter. He wants to build a €22.5 billion AI gigafactory, He wants to sell state-owned enterprises so the Netherlands can make drones, launch its own satellite fleet, power its ships with new...
It's honestly a super good idea. Some country in Europe needs to go all in on being the DJI of the West. It's unsustainable to have all of the drone tech made in China when drones are so important for the future of warfare. Everything you read about modern warfare, I'm not talking about Call of Duty, drones are insane. They break all the previous rules. They're so important. They're already doing that now? Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not the first person to say this. People are trying to do this and say this in the video. But like whatever country masters that is going to have an actual sustainable growth industry.
Reactors. There's been much debate about Vennick's specific prescriptions, but nobody really disagrees with his diagnosis. The Netherlands needs to modernize its...
What if I import Chinese drones and sell them as European drones? Honestly, a brilliant idea. If you get caught, you're probably charged with treason or something. You go to jail, but if not...
its labor market, change its education system, make hard choices about how to use its limited space more efficiently. And it's clear that whatever happens, things are going to get a little less placid and comfortable. This past summer, Dutch politicians spent days talking about a mean tweet by country singer Douwe Bob.
De meeste Nederlanders zitten denk ik thuis te kijken van, ja, waarom gaat het niet over de woningbouw of de economie?
They spent months debating whether it should be legal to kill a single wolf. His name was Bram. He didn't make it.
Don't kill Bram!
This is not quite the mindset Vennick's report calls for, and the choice is clear. You can't have a world-class welfare state with a part-time economy and a NIMBY mindset.
Is he based in the Netherlands? He's clearly passionate about that specific. Nothing was untrue. I think everything he said was true, but you should understand that you're starting from a very well-developed country, happy citizens, educated citizens, you're food sufficient. There's just a lot of things going for them. And then they have low GDP. So like if they wanted to, if they really needed to like borrow, they could borrow quite easily. They have such low debt that they have a huge runway if they needed to do that. Debt is barely real. Debt is very real.